Hey, my happy shiny puppies. This is Melody Fletcher, and I teach the law of attraction and reality creation to highly intellectual people like you in a way that actually makes some freaking sense. And today I want to talk to you about this feeling that so many of my clients and readers have told me about, and one that I recognize myself. And that's the feeling that you maybe don't quite belong here, that that you're very different, and maybe you've ended up in the wrong place, and you're maybe even on the wrong planet, and that it can definitely feel that way. This feeling of disconnectedness that you can get when you look around at the people around you, your family, and the people at school, and the people, at your work, and in your community, who seem to think very differently from you, and nobody else seems to think that's weird except you, and you're sort of the odd one out, and things just don't really make sense, and their way of thinking doesn't make sense, and their way of looking at it doesn't make sense, but you're the only one who doesn't see it that way, and so you're the weird one. And it can be really isolating, and it's very easy to come to the conclusion, particularly as a child, that there's something horribly wrong with you, that you're really broken in some way, that something has gone horribly, horribly awry. And that's when then we come up with theories such as, maybe I'm on the wrong planet, I wasn't supposed to be born here, maybe I'm from the Pleiades or something. So let me address that first. You are from Earth. You were born on Earth, you're from Earth, you're a human being, and you have all the tools and information necessary in order to be a good human. That doesn't mean that you don't have parallel lives on other planets, as well as in the past and the future, and in the past and future of those planets as well. In other dimensions, you have all kinds of parallel lives, and you can access those lives and that information. And if that's something that interests you, then go check out my blog posts on parallel lives. But that's, just because you have a parallel life in the Pleiades somewhere or whatever, doesn't mean that you're from there. They are no more from Earth than you are from there. In this incarnation, you were born on Earth, and you're very much a human. So why do you feel so different? So let's start with the basics. We've talked about how the energy is rising, meaning it's becoming less dense than it was before. It's becoming lighter, less dense, more movement, more love, less fear. And every generation that gets born into a slightly higher vibration. So there's always a gap between generations. So if your grandparents were here, your parents are here, you're here. Okay? And so there's always this gap between generations where, older people tend to look at younger people and not quite understand or resonate with their point of view. There's always a little bit of a gap. And so, if we can generalize, younger generations tend to come in and want to change things. Older generations tend to hold on a little bit more to things as they were. And there's always this sort of clash between them. Now, mind you, I am grandly generalizing here, and I am not saying that older people are less enlightened than younger people, because your own individual experience still determines everything. What I'm talking about here is what you get born into. What you then do with that vibrational soup you got born into is up to you. And so there are people who are in their 70s and 80s and 90s who are, incredibly enlightened, and there are people who are in their teens and 20s who are really closed-minded. And so this isn't some kind of a statement meant to be used to condemn old people or young people or anything like that. Everybody gets their own personal journey, but you can sort of generalize generationally by looking at what the general populace is doing and what their experience is, and you can see this sort of rise in vibration happening, even though an individual at any point can choose to not be at that point. And so you've already built into the system got this sort of gap as the energy is rising and as evolution is happening. But because it's speeding up, the gap is actually getting wider and wider and wider between generations. And you started to see this in a big way, really, in the 60s and 50s and 60s, the kids that were born then. They were sort of the first in our conscious history, we should say, that had a much bigger gap where it's not like grandparents and parents didn't bitch about the new generation in generations past before then. But to me, there was a sort of a big shift in consciousness that was coming in that didn't quite take at the time. The the flower children, and the make, you know, love not war, and these thoughts were coming in that were really much more holistic thoughts, much more peaceful thoughts, but couldn't at that time be translated into something that could really infiltrate the old energy, the systems of the old energy yet. But it was this glimpse. It was this massive glimpse. And that's the first time to me that you see this really big jump. And then the next generation jumped again, and the next generation jumped again, until you get these kids that are born now, who are absolutely not trainable into the bullshit, and who have to be parented in a very, very different way. And that reminds me that I meant to do a parenting video for these new kids. So I will do that. I'll make a note of it. But anyway, so you've got this big gap. The gap is getting wider and wider and wider. So that alone already makes you feel a little bit more alien compared to your parents, because the difference is so great. And the difference in how you think, it's like we're being born with less and less of those limitations, less and less of those filters to drop. And so, you know, whereas maybe our generation sort of wondered, oh gosh, that can't be right. The newer generation now comes in and goes, no, that's not right. There's not even a question, you know, it's just that, no, that doesn't make any sense. We're done here. And so, you know, there's that feeling of sort of not belonging and being very different already generationally. But now on top of that, you add the fact that there are certain individuals, quite a few individuals, but certain individuals who've come in with sort of, let's call it a stronger, more specific desire, to remember who you are, or to hold on to a higher vibration, to not be taken in by the bullshit. And it's sort of like you've come in as a beacon of light, as somebody who has woken up a little earlier than the rest, and you're this beacon of light, and wherever you are, you're illuminating the area around you. And you don't have to do anything to make that happen. That is happening just by you being here. You've already fulfilled your purpose just by being here. So thank you for showing up, and thank you for bringing your light to the world. It's starting to make some sense now why I keep saying that, right? And so you're this beacon who's illuminating this, who's kind of ushering in this time of enlightenment. It's ushering in the ascension. It's ushering in this massive transition from third dimension to fifth dimension, which is not an easy thing to do, and it is a huge thing to do. But that requires people who were willing to hold on to that light and not have it get diminished, perhaps more so than the rest of the populace. And so you felt different because you were different. It was totally valid. Yeah. And what went wrong is that you thought that that was a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And I get that your childhood was probably horrible and traumatic and very difficult, to some degree. And I don't want to diminish that, but you know, a lot of that pain came from misunderstandings and misinterpretations of what was actually happening to you. And, you know, it is one of my missions to go out and let people know, let you know that, you know, you're not crazy and there's nothing wrong with you and you're not broken. You're making history. You're taking part and being in the front lines of a massive shift in the way we think, the way that we approach ourselves, our world, each other. It is all changing. It is changing profoundly and rapidly, in a way that has never happened in the history of human evolution before. And so, you know, it's not an easy process, but it is a kick-ass process. It's an amazing process, and one that you were very eager to participate in. And so you knew that, you know, part of it would be a little bit difficult. Being the front runner of something always is. And although you're probably not amongst the very, very first to come through with this new energy, you're amongst the first waves. There's a wonderful teacher called Dolores Cannon, who used to teach that there was 3 waves of sort of light workers coming in, and you can read her work if you wish. I resonate with it. I resonate with this idea of different waves, and there certainly seems to be some truth to that. So if that makes you feel good to pursue that, do that. If it feels like it's limiting, don't. But that's what you're here to do. And that's why you feel different. And it is in many ways more difficult than the children that are being born now, who are not fighting this as much. They're just kind of there. And our generation still, is in many ways has to sort of fight against this sort of other energy because we're the transition team. And the transition team has a rougher ride. But it's also for an awesome purpose. And that doesn't mean that you don't get to have fun. It doesn't mean that your life is supposed to be horrible. But as you're starting to get this understanding, as you're starting to manifest this clarity, it's going to make things a lot easier for you. So what can you do so that you don't feel so alone, so that you don't feel so disconnected from people, so you don't feel like you're an alien trying to explain, something in human language to somebody who doesn't get it, or trying to explain an alien language to somebody who speaks human language. The answer is find your tribe. Start connecting with people who are like-minded. Start connecting with people who are in the same situation, in the same energy. And you will not feel so alone anymore. You'll feel like you have come home. And if you don't know where to go to do that, can I tell you? You know what? I'm just going to tell you. I can't keep it in anymore. We've got a solution for you for that in the upcoming Reality Academy, which I told you is coming in January. It's coming at the end of January. I made it into January, but it's at the end of January. So we're going to be launching that, and going to be having lots of information for you on that. It's super exciting. So, stay tuned. But if you're kind of wondering, like, where is my tribe? We're going to create sort of a beacon for that tribe so that you can find each other. Because like I said, again, it's my mission, in life, part of my mission in life to be that beacon for you so that you can not find me, but you can find yourself and you can find each other. And so I'm happy to facilitate that. And I'm super excited about it. And it's coming. So just, hold on. But more information is coming very soon. But I'll tell you, we're going to start the launch on January 26th. So mark your calendar. Oh my God. Okay. All right. I've said enough. I got to shut up now. There's still much work to be done, but it's coming. Okay. So I will talk to you soon. And until then, thank you for bringing your amazing, unique light to the world. Just by being here, you're fulfilling your purpose. But thank you for showing up, because you're doing more good than you realize. Happy, shiny, smushy, smushy puppy hugs. See you next time. Bye.